like a camera lens, which is where they get the name from, lenticular clouds. So I thought it'd be fun to kick off the show today with a little weather trivia, but not just weather trivia, more national park trivia, shall we call it. So the question for today, I'm wondering if you all know this, my Florida friends, how many national parks do we have here in the state of Florida? So I have 4 options for you. 4, 9, 11, or 14 parks. Think about it. We're going to wait a couple minutes until I give you the answer to that question. So that is your weather trivia for this afternoon. We'll switch over to a live look out in downtown Tampa. 84 degrees. We have been building with these clouds bubbling up through the day today. Today is going to be the cloudiest in the next couple before we build back in. Quite a bit more sunshine out there. Winds right around 8 miles per hour coming in out of the southwest mainly. And so we look at the big picture here, and really the name of the game through the rest of this week is going to be some big time heat. We're talking near record high temperatures pretty much each and every afternoon. Even if we don't set records, we're going to be right up into record territory, well above average temperatures. And part of the big story of that is this ridge of high pressure. We've got winds coming in mostly out of the south and southwest around this area. We've had some drier air to enjoy kind of wrapping around that ridge of high pressure, but not so much in the way of that anymore. We see this cold front boundary that's kind of stalled out through parts of Georgia, Alabama, into Mississippi. And this same system brought some big rain totals to parts of the New Orleans and parts of Louisiana yesterday. Right around this time, we really started to see that rain pick up for parts of Louisiana. We saw 4 to 6 inches of rain in some cases and some flash flooding concerns on Monday. But as we switch over to our water vapor map, yesterday we had some of this kind of brown color on the map that was showing some of that drier air that we had in the mid and upper levels of the atmosphere. That's kind of been pushed off the East Coast, and instead we're seeing more of these high-based clouds that have continued to drift across the Sunshine State through the day. So humidity levels, those have bumped up just a bit compared to the last couple of days. We really had very comfortable and much drier air all through the holiday weekend. Dew points now kind of up into the mid 60s, where we were closer to the 50s, low 60s the last few days. So still comfortable, but slightly higher humidity and temperatures. They are above average all across the board. We're actually closer to average high temperatures right now, but we have several more hours of heating to go through. And so we're going to be able to warm things up several more degrees from where we're at now. And so most of the states sitting in the 80s, a couple of upper 70s in the mix. Right now, 81 in St. Pete, 84 the temperature in Tampa. We look inland where it is 88 right now in Bartow. Lower temperatures along the coast, but upper 80s, near 90 for many of our inland spots. And really, as we roll out the calendar month, it has been above average every single day since last Wednesday, right around the holiday weekend. We were right around 90 degrees both Saturday and Sunday. We actually tied a record high. Yesterday, we were just shy of record heat, but we were pretty close, warming into the upper 80s, just shy of tying records. And so a big part of what helps keep at least some of our coastal areas a little bit cooler this time of year is the sea breeze. That's a big component in our weather. And overall, the big picture here is, as we talk about what drives these sea breezes here along our west coast, we overall have temperatures along the water and along the land that are very equal as we start out the day. We typically start out in the upper 70s, water temperatures ranging from the mid to upper 70s, but as the sun comes up, we start to heat up over land, and temperatures over land become much warmer than the water temperature. So by the afternoon, we're talking temperatures up into the 90s for our coastal and our inland spots. And then we've got those water temperatures, or temperatures over the water rather, more in the upper 70s. So we start to see that big spread in temperatures as the daytime heating goes on and the sun helps warm conditions over the land much better. And that forms this sea breeze boundary where we've got this much warmer air that's rising, and that warmer air over land pulls all of that cooler air towards the land. And what that does, you see kind of that portion of the coast where overall that cooler air layer is able to kind of creep in and limit some of our bay area, our coastal spots from feeling temperatures quite as hot as areas further inland and away from the coast. And so that sea breeze effect overall is a big part of our forecasting here. It drives some storms along that sea breeze boundary as we get into the start of that summer season. But for this time of year, we're really just watching that for where we can expect some cooler temperatures along the coast versus not. When we've got that strong easterly wind that does tend to keep us much warmer along even our coastal spots. We've seen a lot of afternoons where areas around St. Pete pushing up to 88, 89, much above average, where we typically would be talking low to mid 80s. But it's that sea breeze effect that does play a big role in what we're seeing as far as temperatures. And we'll also talk about that playing a role in our storms once we get back into the rainy season, which, yeah, right now, no rain is in sight, really. We just continue on not only this hot trend, but this dry weather trend. And so our average high, 84. You look at the forecast in yellow compared to the record high in red, and notice we're a degree or two within that range. As we finish out this week and even into this weekend, we're still talking temperatures feeling very toasty all across the board. And so the big picture here, two ridges of high pressure and overall just high pressure continue to dominate the southern tier of the country. Things a little bit more active across the north, a couple of storm systems where along our jet streams are really going to favor for more of these storms to continue to slide west from east, but staying well to the northern tier of the country while we stay kind of basking in these above average temperatures. And you see it right on through Thursday. We're still in this mix where we're forecasting low 90s here for Tampa, 80s and 90s all across the Gulf Coast, really, with still the potential for some cooler temperatures and some more active snow and storms as we head further north and west away from parts of the deep south, where really it's not just in the next 7 days or so, but as we close out the month of April, look at our long-term outlooks. No cool down is in sight, and really for the eastern half of the country, a good chunk of the country actually, even extending into the Pacific Northwest. Look at all these areas that are going to be dealing with above average temperatures from April 27th to May 1st. We even see that extending out to parts of Washington, Oregon, and down the coast of California as well. So with the above average temperatures, where will there be some rain to talk about? Well, unfortunately, not for us here in the East Coast. In fact, we've got this bullseye over parts of the heartland, Texas, up into Kansas, where we expect that above normal precipitation, not exactly the part of the country that needs the rain, but it's where things are going to remain active along our jet streams. And then you see that cutoff as we get into parts of Georgia, down into the Carolinas and Florida. Not really a whole lot of rain to talk about here as we close out the month of April. And so, yeah, there is going to be some rain around. Look at our rainfall accumulation that rolls out through the remainder of this week. Plenty of rain just to the north of us, and even parts of Atlanta in the mix for some storms out there this afternoon and through tonight, all across the Tennessee Valley and back toward parts of Texas. Significant rain for the next couple of days, but that just really cuts off as we get into the panhandle. We'll be lucky to get half an inch of rain up into far northern parts of the state. And that does mean fire danger and drought continues to worsen here across the Sunshine State. And through the month of April, we've just continued to see these drought conditions expanding. We're now about 2% of the state where we see this color here in red. This is where we are under our extreme drought conditions. And then we have seen this little sliver of the panhandle up near Panama City where we are back in this abnormally dry category. That's our lowest form of drought. That's the good news there. But we have seen that creep back in for northern parts of the state. So mandatory burn bans, those are in effect for about a dozen Florida counties. We zoom out here and see that's really focused along central and south Florida spots. But I will mention there is 3 counties in the mix. We are under year-round burn bans. So yard burning never allowed here in Hillsborough as well as Pinellas and up into Duval County. That's up where St. Augustine and Jacksonville are. But the rest of these counties, these are new county-enacted burn bans to allow for the ongoing dry, warm conditions. And it has been a bit breezy, which of course allows for any spark that can occur to spread very quickly. So just something to keep in mind. April and May is when we typically see the peak of our wildfire season here in the state of Florida. After 6 months of basically just extended dry weather, it does amplify kind of, the grounds are feeling it basically with vegetation dried out and ground moisture definitely running dry. So technically, we've got a little bit left to go in our dry season. May is our last month of the dry season. And then look at how those average rain chances jump up come June and July, basically tripling, if not more, our average rain that we see here around the Tampa Bay area. So we've got to look quite a ways out out to even have some slim rain chances to talk about. But I have it paused here, fast forwarded to tomorrow evening. There's all that rain across the deep south that I mentioned to you of stalled out front is just going to allow for the same spots to be getting in on the rain action the next couple of days. That ridge, though, is really just going to block us here in the state of Florida from getting in on any of those rain chances. But we look out to next Monday. Yeah, that's how far out we have to go to start to see that ridge slide a little bit out of the way to allow for some shower chances to nudge a little bit further east. So we don't really have impressive rain chances out of this, but just the big picture shows that there is going to start to be some of the potential for those showers as we look out 10 days or so. So we're going to take a little bit of time to get there. And in the next couple of days, we'll enjoy these sunny, dry afternoons, pleasant temperatures for laying out on the beach, low to mid 80s, a good deal of sunshine, especially moving forward from today where we are just kind of dealing with more of these high-based clouds across the area. There's a look at your wind tracker where we've kind of have this variable wind pattern over the next couple of days around that high pressure system as it kind of wobbles a little bit here or there that will slightly tweak our overall kind of wind pattern. But the main story is 5 to 10 mile per hour winds, not too breezy out there. And really it's the East Coast and parts of the Panhandle that are feeling the influence of that moderate and high rip current from that onshore flow from the winds around that system. So they'll be continuing to deal with a high rip current risk, but for us here, overall, none of that is a concern here along our Bay Area beaches. So just take it easy out there, though. If you are swimming along the Atlantic coast, we have unfortunately had a couple of stories out of the holiday weekend where people getting caught up in rip currents with not a happy ending to some of those stories. So here's a look at your evening. The rest of the day today, a couple of passing clouds. We fall into the low 80s right around the sunset hour, slow to cool off though. So by 9 o'clock, we dip into the upper 70s and overall temperatures still going to be running about 5 degrees above average. Mostly clear conditions, a low of about 70 tonight in Tampa. Bay Area spots spotted out right around 70 with low to mid 60s for the Nature Coast and our inland areas. Sunny and hot again for our temperatures tomorrow, likely going to tie record heat in Tampa as we're forecasting back into the 90s inland, mid and upper 80s there along the coast. All right, we're taking you off to see a different sight here. Do you recognize this city? We're playing Guess the Camera today. 80 degrees, that's the temperature there. You see some of those clouds and that gloomy setup. Hint, hint, we have talked about where some of the places are that are dealing with the active weather. On the other side of this break, we'll show you where that camera shot is, and of course, we'll have the answer to your weather trivia. Hello, my friends. Welcome back into the show. All right, before the break, we sent you off with a look at our weather camera and today's Guess the Camera. Did you guess the Big Easy? Because yes, this is the live look right now in New Orleans. They are socked in with cloud cover and coming off of the heels of what was some big rainfall totals coming across the area yesterday. We switch over to a live look here at SkyTower radar, where right around the New Orleans metro area, getting a slight break in some of the heavy rain that was ongoing at about this time yesterday. But we do have some storms around the area, some of those in Louisiana at this time, and kind of just to the south and west of where the New Orleans metro area is. And so we'll talk more details on this and the outlook for these storms for the rest of this afternoon and evening. But right at the start of the show, we kicked it off with weather trivia. How many national parks are in Florida? Your options were 4, 9, 11, and 14 parks. So what was your guess? Because the answer to that question is C. There are 11 national parks that you can visit across Florida. Did you know that? Because I actually didn't realize how many there were. Of course, we've got the big ones that we know of: Everglades, Biscayne, Dry Tortugas, all down there at the base of the peninsula. We've got DeSoto right here in our backyard in St. Pete, but then quite a few of those up across the East Coast there. We've got the Gulf Islands, that's off the base of the peninsula, and up near St. Augustine areas. We've got 2 national parks, and then those kind of extend down the Space Coast. So overall, pretty cool, and it is halfway through National Park Week. So if you're looking for some fun to get into here the next few days and through the weekend, go on and check out some of our national parks here around the Sunshine State. As we look at water temperatures right now, a lot of our local water beaches sitting right around the mid-70s, 74, 75 is kind of what we're seeing with a lot of our local Bay Area beaches. And so that puts water temperatures about 2 to 2.5 degrees above average. And as we get into May, we see on average our water temperature in Clearwater Beach up to 78. And then come June, that is when the low 80s will make a return here for our water temperature. So the mid 70s with highs in the 80s to near 90 really kind of just invites you to go for a swim. And we're going to be talking great conditions out on the beach the next couple of days with low to mid 80s right now across the area. And as we take a look at the rest of the country, we overall are tracking some really humid conditions for parts of Texas with temperatures in the mid 80s. As a front slices through, that is going to allow for some severe and stronger storms, the potential for some hail and locally heavy areas of rain and some gusty conditions as this frontal boundary scrapes across these areas through the rest of this afternoon. And a big component in that is we've got what looks like a dry line that's going to be establishing itself and moving east across these areas through tonight and tomorrow. And so a big part of that, look at this division here where we're seeing dew points in El Paso, Texas, 12 degrees. And then you see that big change as we jump on over to the other side, parts of Dallas and even Houston right now, 70-degree dew point and even the low 60s. And so when we see this classic kind of dry line setup, it really is exactly that, a division between 2 air masses, and one of those very humid and the other very dry. And of course, when we get those colliding air masses, that does allow for a lot of unstable weather. And so as we go ahead and look at what we're expecting here the rest of this afternoon and evening, I want to go ahead and show you where these fronts are that are going to be setting up shop and moving their way across the country. So we flip back over and you can see where that stalled out front is. That's moving kind of from Texas up into the Carolinas, associated area of low pressure well up into the northeast, kind of spinning right around and outside of Quebec. And so that frontal boundary kind of continues to pull east off of the mid-Atlantic through the day tomorrow. But then we'll be watching for another little storm system that starts to develop just east of the Rockies there. And then that one starts to kind of head its way east. And we'll see that general spin kind of moving right into parts of Texas with another big frontal boundary extending up into parts of the Great Lakes and the Northeast through Friday and into the start of the weekend. That will allow for some additional areas of rain. But boy, did we pick up on some big rainfall totals last night across parts of the Deep South. Just look at some of these rain totals from yesterday. yesterday outside of Baton Rouge, radar indicating 6 to 7 inches. The New Orleans area about 3 to 4 inches, and you can kind of see as that tracks through parts of Mississippi and up into Alabama, right outside of Birmingham, we did get some rainfall reports there, upwards of 5 inches. And so there is still this kind of beneficial moisture track where it overall is a relatively weak system, but we've got this moisture pool that's going to kind of allow for some locally heavy rain for all of these areas from Texas and kind of tracking up into the Carolinas and parts of the Mid-South. And so that's overall the setup for today. And so that is going to allow for some severe storms. We see this threat from Texas through Oklahoma and Kansas. And overall, the good news is the tornado threat not necessarily there for today. So our main storm concerns are going to be some gusty winds along with the potential for some larger hailstones. And so that's what we'll be watching across the South today and tomorrow. And then as we look ahead to Wednesday, we are going to be watching the Northwest stay a little bit on the active side as this upper level system is going to allow for some areas of rain to head through parts of Idaho, Montana, into Colorado, Utah as well, and kind of extending out into parts of the plains and the central plains as we look ahead through the day tomorrow. And so we will kind of see this general area of rain spread across. A couple of thunderstorms will be possible in that mix as well. But overall, things generally in this kind of zonal pattern where we are overall going to stay more active for the northern tier of the country. And then some of those dragging cold fronts extending into parts of the south will allow for some heavier rain and some systems as those kind of continue to move out of the Intermountain West and into parts of the deep plains. But otherwise, we're going to continue on this dry weather trend here for the Sunshine State. And so as we look at our temperatures across the country, 90 and sunny for us. You see where the storms are going to be setting up shop tomorrow. New Orleans in the mix for that with a high of 82, 77 in Dallas. We look up into DC, 78 for your high tomorrow. Minneapolis feeling really nice spring weather there, 70 and sunny for you. Billings 53, Boise 66, and we've got sunshine as we look furthermore into the desert Southwest with low 90s for highs around Phoenix tomorrow, and parts of the California area going to be topping out right around the mid 60s for the day tomorrow. We'll give you a look at your national forecast before I send it off to a quick break, and I'll give you another look at your local forecast and how we're expecting some longer days as we look ahead to the start of May. Stick with us. I'll be back right after this break. Well, it's about that time of the year, my friends, where the angle of the sun continues to get higher and higher in the sky. This is a look from the angle of the sun, how it's changed from a month ago, back on March 22nd. You see that degree of the angle of the sun, about 62 degrees. Now, as we are approaching the end of April, about 74 degrees. That's where the angle of the sun is at the peak heating of the mid-afternoon. Then we look to May and June. Notice we get up into the mid-80s as far as the angle of the sun, getting almost nearly overhead, allowing for those longer days. And of course, that comes with those later sunrises and sunsets. And speaking of that, as we look from April to May, during the month of April, we gained about 40 minutes of daylight. We tack on another 30 minutes or so through the month of May. And so about 2 days from now, we see the first of the sunset past 8 p.m. And then by the end of May, we're talking sunset close to the 8:30 time frame. So we'll give you one more look at your forecast for tomorrow. We talked about it, but hot, dry conditions, that's really the name of the game tomorrow, the next couple of days, as we're going to be right up into record heat territory all across the area. We're talking upper 80s to low 90s for most spots, and then some mid 80s closer to the coast. So really great out there on the beach, especially as we are a bit breezy, but we're not dealing with those dangerous rip currents. There's a look at your 7-day forecast. Thanks to everyone for being here with me. We'll see you back here tomorrow afternoon. Hello everyone, welcome into SkyTower weather now on this Tuesday afternoon. It is April 22nd, and happy Earth Day, my friends. Wanted to kick you off with Val's Views, a beautiful shot where, yes, on Earth Day, we are just embracing how lucky we are to have such beautiful places to explore right here in our backyard, but also all across the country, all across the world, rather. And it's not just Earth Day, but it's actually also National Park Week. So we are about